Welcome to YTunes Shuffle. This is your host, David Earl Waterman. This is episode 3. This is how the show works. I ask my guest to use their device, whether it's a smartphone or an iPhone or whatever it is, to play their musical selections and simply put their device on shuffle. Our interview will be totally informed by the music and by anything else that happens to come up after that. And so here we go. Today's guest is Claire Dunlap of Hollywood, California.
Woohoo! And it's Dunlap with an A.
Dunlap with an A.
Not like Dunlop the tires.
Well,
I've got my whole life. I said if I had Dunlop, if I was like the tires of the tennis balls, I probably wouldn't be in your establishment right now. I've said that
and
to
if
people.
I were the Waterman pen, yeah. If I thank you for that correction. Being a host of a podcast, I think the most important thing is to get pronunciations right.
Oh.
I think we're on shuffle. That song we were just playing. What was that?
That was a copy or a cover of Across the Universe by Fiona Apple.
And
that was
you chose that song so we could get our levels,
right?
And this song that we're hearing right now is the very first spontaneous song, Miss Claire Dunlap, that's come up on your shuffle.
Yes, indeed. And it's. Do you want me to tell you what it is, or do you want to try to guess?
Our listeners are dying to know.
Name that tune. Name that tune.
It's Nirvana.
Yes, but you just read the phone.
Well, I was reading the. Don't give away my secrets. I took a peek. I took a peek on the phone to clarify what I was believing. Like that's
to clarify.
Yeah. Well, there. See, we're rocking already. Nirvana. What's your Nirvana story? What's your go as far back in time and how is this particular song relevant?
Okay. Well. I was living in Santa Barbara in the early 90s. I graduated from UCSB, and so I think what you're going to find, I'm going to preface this with the majority of my music. Like, I do not have any modern music on this. I just don't have any. I am so
What do you
out
mean
of
by
touch,
modern music?
Like current music.
Between like 2012 and
between maybe 95.
Oh, really?
I really have no current music on my iTunes.
Okay.
Am I allowed to say iTunes? Yeah.
Yeah, by all means. Well, this is totally illegal.
Okay,
bootleg.
great. Awesome. So all of my music, I was noticing, and I know this about myself, I just, one of the things when I was in high school, that was my whole identity was music. It was all about being in touch with the, who were the most alternative bands, who did nobody know about, all of that, being in touch with all of that. I prided myself on it. It was my identity, and I loved it, and I got to go to gigs, and I got to go, I was in high school in the 80s, so I had the benefit of that whole
Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at Merrill S. down in Palos Verdes.
Palos Verdes.
So I'm actually I've moved around a lot, but I'm from Southern California, so cool. Los Angeles, yeah. So I used to get to come up here and see all kinds of gigs, like at the Hollywood Palladium. I saw I think my first gig that I saw, well, going way back to when I was 13, was Split Enz. And then before that, it was the Police. I was 13 also, but that was at the Forum. And then at the Palladium, then I got to see like Echo and the Bunnymen and Simple Minds and the Smiths and like
when Nirvana came into it.
And so Nirvana, like in the 90s, I was in college in Santa Barbara, and Nirvana was just sort of I would say, probably one of the last hip bands, like that grunge movement was probably the last time I was current with music. And then I think my interests shifted and I started getting involved actually with acting, like what we were discussing before. That's when I was starting to get more focused on that. So my interests were really focused and shift on, theater and doing all of that. So the music just sort of went by the wayside. And then staying current. And then, frankly, I started becoming one of those snobs.
What kind of snob? What do you mean, a music snob?
This music's crap. They don't know what music is.
Post Nirvana. So Nirvana, what we've started here on your shuffle is that Nirvana represents your fond farewell to current music, and this is sort of where
it kind and I wouldn't have thought it to be that way, but now that you mention it like that, it kind of was. Like after Nirvana, I wasn't really staying current with music. I really wasn't, and and I still, it's funny because there are certain bands that I listen to today that I hear today that I'm like, oh, I really like them. And they've already, they've broken up, like the White Stripes. I never gave them a chance.
I could not tell you one White Stripe song.
Yeah.
I've probably heard them before.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So should we just hit forward? I think it did.
Oh, yeah, this says it's a hidden track. So it'll probably, let's hit shuffle.
Yeah. See what comes up
happens.
next. This is YTunes Shuffle. We don't know what's coming up next.
We don't. If it's shuffling at all.
Yeah, maybe hit the.
How about that? Oh, here we go. Do we give like a second for people to try to guess? If you are a true fan of this band, you will know right away what this song is.
Well, let's give them a second because I have no idea.
No?
No.
I'm covering my iPhone so you can't read.
I'm not going to cheat anymore.
Now remember, I referenced the 80s. So keep in mind all the music on the iPod is going to be from prior to the 90s, 90s and prior.
Claire, I can't take it anymore. I'm sure my 8
listeners... It's Depeche Mode.
Oh.
And it's Black Celebration.
Depeche Mode, Black Celebration.
Now, Depeche Mode was this was one of the bands that was really part of my upbringing. One of the things that I loved about music when I was growing up and in the 80s, when I was in high school, I, like many of us do, teenagers, felt isolated, alone, different.
Were you an only child or
I wasn't an only child, but my sister was much older, so she and I were never really raised together. And for various circumstances. So though I wasn't, I sort of was raised as an only child. Let's put it that way.
Got it.
And
big age separation.
Yeah, and my parents were divorced, and so there was a lot of back and forth between my grandparents. So there was a lot of moving around that also happened. So that's constantly being pulled from one place to another, and then I'm in this new environment every time, having to make new friends and that. So
you went from high school to high school, middle school.
No, it was mostly I went to three high schools, but that was in the first year. So it was like I did get to settle at one high school, and high school ended up being kind of, as much as a lot of people don't like high school, I ended up having a great time in high school. But it was also the start of another process of my life that I don't know if I want to talk about or not.
It's entirely up to you. I see that that's a pretty short song.
Yeah. Oh, this is the stuff. Okay, this is the stuff that I was like trying to take off my iPod before this, and I left one or two just in case.
Oh, this is
because I'm like, this is going to be too embarrassing. So this would be I lied. This is the most current music that I have.
Well, I mean, so this is how YTunes Shuffle goes.
Right.
We try to get as much information as possible.
So
we don't have to go forward. We don't have to backtrack. But this is interesting to me because I know on my shuffle there are songs that I don't want anymore.
Yeah.
And sometimes hearing them just interrupts the groove that I'm getting when I'm out walking. Or what's the deal with this one?
So this is a relaxation music. So it has nothing to do with any. This is meditation music.
Okay, purely meditation.
Purely meditation.
Well, I make the rules. I make the rules with YTunes Shuffle, and I like to keep it as spontaneous. And this is what's on your shuffle. You've got some meditation music.
No, but that's what I was saying, which I find so telling about my story, and it kind of fits into like the high school bit of Depeche Mode. Like that band really helped me to emote. Let's put it that way. Like it helped me to connect with my feelings because the lyrics were so moving and meaningful to me. And cut to today where I went through a process of not wanting to have any feelings at all. And so now, like today, part of what my life path is, I guess if you would say, though I kind of hate that language, is, learning to be open. And so part of that process is meditation. So I have this music to help me quiet my mind so that I can actually meditate and open myself.
Well, my shuffle is so shuffled up that it's not unusual. I'll be doing something really physical and cranking out some tunes, and then my meditation will come on, or Eckhart Tolle will come on. And sometimes I find it jarring. It doesn't seem to fit the mode, but if I stay open to it and kind of just accept, like, okay, I was just cranking some AC/DC. Now my meditation music, very much like you, and I think many others have, comes in. It's like, if we allow ourselves to just go with it, then it's going to be fine. When you were going through this transition to go back to Depeche Mode and high school being a time when you were moving around quite a bit,
The moving, I'm going to correct you, just the moving around actually happened up until high school. And then the first month of high school, I jumped from 2 different places. So before that is when we moved around. So middle school, elementary school. So by the time like high school came around, I got to get settled a little. But yeah.
Cool. And how long does my meditations, I have some that go an hour. And how long does this one go?
Oh, this one looks like 6 minutes.
It's about 6 minutes?
No, it's 9 minutes. But I don't, that's the thing, you're so funny. You're like, when yours is on shuffle, I never put my iPod on shuffle. I always, like, I'm in control.
Yeah, so we don't. And
so like, if I'm working out, this is what I listen to. If I'm meditating, this is what I listen to. So it's never like, I always know what's coming next.
Well, and with YTunes Shuffle, we don't.
Right, which I love.
And so in the 80s, I'm guessing you might have graduated 87, 89?
86.
86,
yeah.
Okay. So that was perfect timing for Nirvana. What happened after high school? Like once you graduated and you were on your way, then what was your next move?
Well, the first part of college was, again, I sort of reenacted my earlier years, and I jumped to a couple of different colleges. And was trying to, so I had decided I thought I might go to UCLA, so I started at a community college in an honors program that would shoot me straight into UCLA. I had been accepted at a couple different colleges. I went to one for 3 days. I hated it. I left. That was San Diego State.
Well, that's all you
University.
need. 3 days.
Yeah,
that'll tell you,
right? It was
right
3 days. I'm like, this is not for me. I'm out of here. So, and that was obviously, there was a boy involved that lived at home, and he was like my best friend in security. So I'm like, why am I leaving?
Yeah,
like,
course.
forget it.
Makes
So I
perfect
went back.
sense. Yes.
And so then that's when I was like, okay, well, this will be my plan instead. I'll go to this, and then I'll end up at UCLA. And then the thing with that boy didn't work out. I went to Hawaii to see my dad, and that's where he was living, and I used to go visit all the time.
So you grew up with your dad living in Hawaii.
Correct.
And you would often go to Hawaii
I got
as a
to go
high
to
school student?
Yeah, I got to go to Hawaii every year since the time I was 12.
Wow.
Yeah, 11 actually. Yeah.
And now what
we
is the
lived
term
part-time
now?
in Hawaii.
Are men and women in Hollywood who pursue careers in the visual and performing arts, are we all actors now, or is actress and actor still?
I just had a class where we had this very same discussion. Because
what is it?
I think it's whatever you want it to be.
Because you are a visual and performing artist now.
Yeah.
How would you like to be referenced?
I don't care. Either actor or actress. It's
Either
fine.
one.
It doesn't
Okay.
matter. I'm not going to get offended if you call me an actress.
Okay.
It's not.
Well,
and I think that's it. It's like the whole deal with, it's a way to differentiate between I'm a man or a woman. I don't see it any other way. I don't find it demeaning. I don't find it as like, you're not demeaning my quote unquote art by calling me an actress. It's
well,
like,
that's what I'm
a girl.
Now that's
So.
like myself and many others, it's what we do, and what we've done. And I think it's interesting, in talking with so many folks, moving around does play a part in that. And in the spirit of moving around and YTunes Shuffle, if you were to guess, if you were to hit next, would you think that the next song that would follow this meditation piece would be, do you have like a theme of music or a style of music? If you were asked, like, what is your style? We know the genre. We know not genre. We know the time frame kind of stops around 84, 85.
No, I think it goes back as far as the 70s. My music, and then goes up to the 90s.
So let's hit forward and just see if this comes as any surprise or any relevance.
I hope it's something fun.
I know that's always the trick here. Now you look puzzled.
Because this is a current. I forgot this was on here. This was something that was downloaded. I haven't even heard this album yet. This is U2.
This is the free U2 album. Oh,
that's what this is.
Now I just saw U2 at the forum the other day.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, with our friend Billy
I saw
Tighe.
the pictures. My gosh, you guys were close. That was so awesome. Amazing.
Now, this is amazing to me.
Yes.
Isn't this interesting that at least I think it's interesting, but like social media and technology has kind of taken a little bit of control. I mean, I know, and I'm very much the same way that you are, is that, around the late 80s is where I kind of stayed with what is most important to me and what I really cherish on my shuffle.
Yeah.
But there are now ways in which I can wake up and all of a sudden I've got this new U2 album. I had an opinion about this experience when suddenly I had a U2 album,
Yeah.
their latest one.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts? What were your reactions when this U2 album came onto your shuffle, your mix?
I thought it was cool. And because U2 was one of the bands that I listened to back in the 80s. Like I started listening to them in the 80s, and I did listen to them through the 90s. And when they came out with the album, and I don't know what the actual album is called, you will. It was the one with Mysterious Ways on it.
Yeah.
What's that album?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, and
I don't
anyway,
know.
but the album was brilliant, you know, and it was such a nice thing to hear because I had kind of gone off them for a little bit because I was tired of listening to the same, you know, and then when they came out with that album, I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm totally in love with U2 again, you know. But again, like I said, even though the music was great, I was still kind of, my interests had gone in another direction. And you know, keeping up with music takes effort and energy, and I was going elsewhere with that effort and energy.
That's true. I mean,
it does.
one has
really does.
to be dedicated to the what is it, to the medium, to the technology?
I think, well, today it's to both, you know, because you have to be willing to listen through some crap, you know. But I also love Facebook for the reason is, you know what? There's one thing. Lana Del Rey is on my iPod, and she's current. Lana Del Rey, I love her, and I heard her first time on Facebook. So, like, the technology does inform and helps me to hear some stuff. I don't have the patience to sift through and do it on my own. My boyfriend will. He's great. He's like, oh, you should listen to this song. You might like it. And I'm like, eh. You know?
I'm the same way, Claire.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking now, we drive all over the place in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we are today. Hollywood, we're right in the belly of the beast.
Heart of it.
Right in the heart of it. And I find myself listening to NPR and talk radio.
I listen to KNX 1070 because they have the traffic report.
Traffic report.
So I'm obsessively listening to that. Yep.
KNX 1070, local AM station, most powerful. I can hear it way out where I live in Canyon Country.
Yeah.
So it really is rare that we're going to be, you know, at this stage in our journey, that we're going to be constantly hearing music, going to dances, clubs,
right.
As you said earlier.
Which I did all of that in the 80s. Oh my gosh. I was at the clubs, I was out, and I was listening to radio, like everything, and also it was the onset of MTV.
Yeah.
So I was obsessively watching that. I would sit in front of the TV and watch MTV for hours just to get like all the new.
Of course, we're the
know?
first generation MTV.
Yeah.
Well, I've since changed my tune, so to speak, around this U2 because I was kind of like, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
But having seen them live now. And
yeah.
I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah.
Where are we now? I think we're at 5.
Okay, so this is a band called Pulp.
Pulp, P-U-L-P.
P-U-L-P, and this is, I think they maybe are late. I don't know too much about them, and this I can attribute to my boyfriend that I had in the late 90s, early 2000s, late 90s actually, just the late 90s, not into the 2000s. He introduced me to this band. He was a great guy. He was also very into music, so actually he helped me to sort of hear some new music.
This is your boyfriend?
My old boyfriend, ex-boyfriend,
your old boyfriend.
Friend, still friend.
Good.
Great.
Good.
We were all involved in theater together, and he's a terrific writer. His name's Jeff, and but I got introduced to this band because of him, and he was a master at making. There were still cassette tapes in the late 90s, if anybody doesn't know that.
Well.
And he made a couple of great tapes, and one of them had mixtapes.
Yeah.
And Pulp was on there. So as a result, like I've downloaded some Pulp songs in order to, you know, because I just really like the music, you know.
You really like the music.
And it's also evocative of the things that I really liked about a lot of the 90s music is they're like with grunge, like Nirvana, not all grunge is the same, but like Nirvana, there's an emotional element, there's a depth to it, there is, you know, a danceability to it, if the crazy as that sounds, you know.
Oh, for sure.
It's like the beat and all of that.
But when you say, when you know, where do you go visually with like, did you get this particular cut from Pulp off of iTunes or something like that?
I did. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, which is because there was a band in New York, Urban Blight, which meant so much to me in college. They're not a hugely known band. They did some backup on Beastie Boys' first album.
Cool.
They were just ska, great. And finding those gems is one of the things I absolutely love about the technology today.
Yeah.
And hearing Urban Blight takes me visually. Hearing Pulp, where do you go visually? Does this conjure up environments, smells, emotions?
Yeah, for me it's not, I don't think, and maybe my answer will change on the next song, but for most songs, my emotional reaction to it is what dictates whether I like it or not.
Like,
it's not a visual thing.
What is
now,
your
it was
emotional?
In the 80s, it was a visual thing because it was all about the videos, I loved the album art, and I loved to be able to open up and read the song lyrics, so that was so the visual for me was less about, what I would imagine. It was more like what was in front of me with the album or the CD cover or whatever.
Okay.
And then today, of course, there's no album covers. I mean, there are, but I'm not laying on my bed reading my album cover.
It's a whole
it's very
different experience.
Yeah.
There's nothing to touch or hold.
Right.
I mean, there are buttons to push and
Right.
then sounds to hear.
So, but I believe it's the same thing that it was back then, is that does this music move me somehow? What about this song attracts me? What is it like? Do I feel with the beat? Do I identify with the lyrics? Because sometimes there's music that's wonderful that I can't even understand a damn word they're saying, like Cocteau Twins. The Cocteau Twins are awesome, but they don't sing any, just like bel canto, same thing. They're not singing words, they're just doing sounds. But the music itself has such a flow, and so I find it's my emotional response that dictates whether or not I'll listen again.
And as in your emotional responses, are those, I mean, okay, I like this particular tune in a variety of different moments, and is that sort of how you define it? I mean, each one of my songs, and I don't want to make this about me at all, but it's like, it's a story. A lot of my shuffle is my diary, the way that I sort of go back in time and kind of, is that similar for you?
Absolutely.
Oh.
And I wouldn't say that I planned it that way,
Okay.
but it's definitely informed when I look at it. Like the one I have Jesus Christ Superstars on this, like the entire soundtrack. I love that. I can sing along
I'm a
with
West Side Story
everything,
guy. Yeah.
So I've got that, and honestly, a lot of what I ended up grudgingly learning how to use iTunes and put it all on here was because I was going to the gym, and I hate the damn gym, but I wanted a way to keep myself distracted and motivated, and music does that, right? So I'm like, well, I need to put in the music that I like and that's going to push me to go. And then, so as a result of that, it turns out to be all music that I've enjoyed and loved over the years.
Speaking of music, what is
now
this?
We're back to Depeche Mode.
Again, wow.
There's a lot of Depeche Mode I noticed when I was sorting through yesterday.
Now, did I don't
No,
think
they're little bits. So
okay.
This one was a shorter one. So, and this is more relaxation, which I'm going to skip. Enough relaxation. Okay, this is good. Sorry, I just had to skip through 2 relaxations.
I'm glad you did, because I really have to consider this, Claire, because I'm really more interested in music.
Right.
Produced by bands.
Yeah.
For listeners. I love meditation.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
A show tune that would work.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
when I was doing a practice session of YTunes Shuffle, my first guest was afraid that her voiceover auditions were going to pop up, and we weren't quite sure what to do. Yeah, so I mean, this is it's popping forward is certainly okay. Well, for the sake of downloading this in a way that it's going to actually work, I got to be conscious of the time. So this will be our last song.
Okay.
And
well, this is a good one to end on.
Okay, tell us about it.
So this is Bauhaus, and this is probably, they were like the grandfathers, which I don't know how they like to be considered grandfathers, but they were of the entire sort of what's now called emo, which I find hilarious, but whatever, that's me being, a judger. But of that whole movement, and they're, back in the day in the 80s, this song, by the way, is called Saint Vitus Dance. And their most popular song that most people would know probably is Bela Lugosi is Dead.
Okay.
And it's Peter Murphy is the lead from Bauhaus. And they were big in the 80s, 70s and 80s, actually. Quote-unquote alternative. But they really were the at the time we called that movement death rock.
Okay.
And then there was a lot of way more extreme bands that came out of that. But it was all the,
this was
black hair.
Part of death rock?
This was a precursor, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like the black hair, the black eyeliner, the white skin, the sort of vampire look that came out that morphed into what's now called emo, and it's probably changed into something else. Like I told you, I'm sort of out of it. I think it was emo like 3 or 4 years ago, But like emotional music, that's what emo is about. So yeah, but I love Bauhaus. They're just great.
What year would this have come out?
This, gosh, 79 to 83 it says.
79, so right in the zone.
Yeah, right in the zone.
Claire Dunlap zone.
Right.
Well, good luck with the acting.
Thank you so much.
As an actor myself, it's it's one of those things where we're out here doing it for all sorts of reasons, and ultimately it's about feeling good. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your mix.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to do another episode sometime?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're a great guest.
Thank you.
And that's the important thing. Is some people are kind of like they kind of chicken out. I don't know what to say about my music, and I'm really glad that you shared with us, what's kind of going on with you and helping us get this show up and running. So
absolutely, super fun. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Totally help you get guests too. I mean, I don't know. I think any music lover would love to talk about his or her music.
I think it's a great way for us to bond beyond our Facebook profiles, and
Absolutely.
certainly for me, it's been so nice to see you again.
Yes, it's been great.
So this is YTunes Shuffle coming out of the apartment of Claire Dunlap in beautiful downtown Hollywood, California. And we're taking it out with a little bit of Bauhaus.
Bye for
See you
now.
next time.